Well, hello, Mr. John Binder.
Hi, Joe. Good to see you.
Welcome to the Joe Fosco Show. Good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm really pleased to have you. I've followed a lot of your work, and watched a good number of your documentaries and the things that you starred in. You've been on television, you've been on YouTube, you've authored some books.
Yes.
Have you written any columns or anything like that?
I never ended up writing for, say, even a local paper, or you know, I don't think I've ever put anything in any of the magazines like Chicago Magazine, etc. They, in terms of anything I've written, they have their staff, or people they tend to go to and things. But maybe that'll change.
Well, I know a great deal about you. Would you mind just explaining for the audience? Some of the audience members may not know exactly what I know. What is it that you write about and cover?
Well, I think the reason I'm here is because I've been actively involved in researching and writing about organized crime for a number of years. I got deeply involved in this about 1991. Maybe we can talk about how that happened a little bit, and started actually writing. At that point, investigating something, wrote that up, eventually got that published in an academic journal, and then started doing a lot of other smaller writing. Well, to come back to your question, at one time I was one of the officers of the Merry Gangsters Literary Society here in Chicago, and they had a newsletter, and I ended up being the editor of the newsletter, so I was writing a lot there actually, but that was something that never had more than about 130 subscribers or something like that, so that was not big time by any means. But.
And how long were you doing that?
Was I editor of the newsletter?
Yes.
I have to go back and look. Maybe as much as 3 years or so. So beyond putting it together and including stuff that other people published, I ended up writing a lot of it from just here, there, and everywhere.
Of course. And how often did you issue a newsletter?
I think we were issuing it when I was doing it, we issued it every 2 months, but then we doubled the size. So to make the logistics easier, then have to get out 12 issues a year. Let's do 6, and then we'll make each issue twice as big.
Oh, wonderful. And so 1991, you somehow acquired this interest in researching organized crime.
Right.
Any specific reason, or any specific area of organized crime? Chicago, New York, Florida?
Yeah, I'm a consumer of other stuff, like, I read what other people write about New York. I wouldn't consider myself to be an expert. I don't produce any new insights about New York, shall we say. But Chicago is my strongest interest, and then I think I have contributed things in terms of various academic articles, one book on Chicago, working on another one now, things like that.
You're born and bred in the Chicago area? Or not?
Not born, actually born in Europe, but came over here when I was 6 months old.
Oh.
Wanted to be near my mother.
There you go, of course. And 6 months olds like to do that.
Yeah, spent most of my life in Chicago.
Yes. Good. What part of Chicago did you grow up?
Well, when I was a kid, first house my parents had was by Irving and Ashland on the north side.
Oh, okay.
For the people who know, they're right across Lakeview, basically right across the street from Lakeview High. And then my parents moved to the suburbs in '67, so they moved to the near northern suburbs there, so I went to high school out there. The rest of the grade school, high school out there.
Ah, wonderful. All right, and then I know we keep talking, I keep mentioning 1991, and then I ask you a different question to take you away from it, so we'll stick with 1991 now.
Okay. How did that happen?
Yes.
I was between hobbies. We don't need to go deeply into it. So I was looking for something else to do, and I'd always been interested in the history of organized crime in Chicago. Read all the books that have been around, by and large, at one time or another when I was young. But then I heard about these guys, the Merry Gangsters Literary Society. Their main interest was organized crime, but each member had his own interest on all kinds of Chicago stuff. So I talked my way in there, and then almost immediately kind of got into it. There was this famous photo of Al Capone, 8 guys, a little girl, and a dog.
Oh, sure. That
everybody knew, but except for Al Capone, nobody had really been carefully identified, even though there's various versions floating around where somebody has penciled in, yeah, this is Ralph Capone, or this is that, or something. So I said, well, this would be fun. So I started working on that. And then with the help of somebody else who was very knowledgeable about the South Suburbs, it took a while, but I think we're like 99+% sure about everybody now who's in the photo. So that was my first project.
Who are the people in that photo? In fact, you have one of your books.
It's in the book.
Yes, this is the book that you authored.
Yes.
And what is it called? Did you hold it up for the camera?
The Chicago Outfit.
Ah, okay.
And let me sort of turn it in such a way that I can see it as well.
Yes.
So this is a famous photo. It's on the cover, and then it's produced in greater detail inside, and there's corroborating photos inside. So obviously we got Al Capone, the place of honor here in the middle.
Sure.
It's taken down in Chicago Heights, probably about 1928. This is Frank Laporte, Chicago Heights gangster. This is Jimmy Emery, who was the boss in Chicago Heights, probably starting around the time. This is Jimmy Emery's daughter, Vera. Emery being an alias, Amorati being the real name. This is, I'll stick with Chicago Heights guys some more. This is Sam Costello, also from Chicago Heights. Now the rest of the guys are Capone's guys. Willie Heaney, who ended up running Cicero.
He's a pretty tough guy.
Probably, yeah. Rocco DeGrazia, who ended up running Melrose Park for years. Louis Capani, who I think I probably need no introduction to this audience. Johnny Morgan. Claude Max,
right,
from St. Louis, who obviously knew Heaney. And then this is the one we were unsure until recently. This is Nick Circella. So very, not too long ago, we sort of nailed it all down. Finally, this was a question mark for a while, but yes. I think we got it. So
it's a wonderful picture, and I think the book is a great book.
Well, thank you for that.
Yes, and I encourage anyone who's interested in this to please buy this book. We can go online and get it anywhere.
Yeah, you can get it from all the online booksellers. You can get it from any remaining regular bookstore. Basically, it's for those who know this series, it's a particular format. So this is about 180 photos and about 20,000 words. These Arcadia books are photo-laden books, but I think I ended up writing on the edges of the pages and stuff just to get more words in because of what I wanted to say. So it is a cohesive story. It's the history of organized crime in Chicago from about the turn of the century up until about 2003.
I see. And you, one of the documentaries I've seen you in was, I think, one that covered the Spilatro murders. And was Bill Romer in the documentary, or
not?
Maybe it's just mentioned in it, perhaps?
Yeah, certainly if it's related, if it's later on, Bill wouldn't be there, because Bill passed away in the mid-90s.
Sure. I think John Drummond was in it.
Yeah, John Drummond definitely get some airtime in that world.
The Romer thing I'm thinking is something a little different that I think pertains to some research you were doing where, of course, how could his name not come up in various research, given what he did? But the piece that you were in that also included John Drummond, what was that? Was it a Giancana piece or a Spilatro piece?
I honestly have to admit I'm not sure anymore, because the way things rolled, and this is part of that 1991 story, I wasn't around the Merry Gangsters too long until one of the founders said, well, we're going to formalize this group now, so we have to have officers and stuff. You want to be president? And I'm like, huh? I said, Nate, if you want me, I will. Well, what I found out was I was the 8th guy he asked. The first 7 said no. Most of the members wouldn't lift a finger for the group. But that's how I got to be president. And then once cable television started calling, Nate was a very supportive guy. Nate said, you're the president. You take care of it. So we got on once, and then cable it's a funny world with those documentaries. They're not quite so able to get people as you would think. One is because they often don't want to pay. So guys can't take off work to go do that, really.
Right.
The second thing is there's a lot of knowledgeable guys out there, but a lot of them can't keep it to 10, 15 seconds. Cable cannot use somebody who's going to tell you 4 hours about this guy, or to answer the question in 3 hours. They need short, succinct sound bites. So it's actually not quite as competitive as you might think. If you do it a couple times, then they start calling you again.
Yes.
That's kind of how they roll.
Right.
So
what are some of your more interesting discoveries in your research that you find interesting?
Well, one thing I wrote down, ended up again in a fairly high-profile academic article, Joe, was there's been all these assertions recently. Years ago, you wouldn't hear this, and it comes up more recently. Oh, the Chicago mob, the outfit elected Jack Kennedy because Joe Kennedy cut a deal with Giancana, blah, 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 blah. Right. If the outfit, pulls all the stops and gets Jack Kennedy elected, the federal pressure on organized crime is going to go away. I say it comes up more recently, years after the election, once everybody who could refute it is dead, by saying, I wasn't at that meeting, I didn't help arrange, Sam Giancana to meet Joe Kennedy. People are telling those stories. So what I did was I went and looked at it in a couple different ways. One, statistically, there's no statistical evidence to support that. outfit wards didn't vote any more heavily for Jack Kennedy in '60 than they tended to vote. Maybe they went, some wards went 85% Democratic for Jack Kennedy. Some of those wards would vote for this plant if it was a Democratic candidate and give it 85% of the vote. So that number doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
Because in surrounding elections, they did pretty much the same thing. Looked at some of the suburbs like Chicago Heights and Cicero. Democratic voting wasn't any stronger there. And I also looked at sort of nationally about union voting, whether the outfit was able to get union members to vote for Jack Kennedy. Now that the voting goes the other way, union members nationally didn't like Jack Kennedy. And there's some other stuff. So, you know, I like to think I've sort of debunked that conspiracy theory or myth.
That's fascinating. I know that must have been somewhat of a challenge, because everyone thinks that Kennedy was put in office by the Democratic machine here in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and those are two different things. Daley and the Cook County Democratic machine pulled down all the stops, but not the outfit. The outfit controlled certain wards.
Thank you for that clarification, and that's what I meant. You see that it's synonymous, or has been synonymous in Chicago for so long, the Chicago outfit and the Democratic machine.
Yeah, I mean, they overlap to this sort of extent.
Yes. But then you have the Chicago outfit, you have the labor movement, you have the Cook County machine. Pardon my ignorance, I always think of those as one thing. Well, no. Or at least in years earlier than recent, you know.
Well, you know, going back to Capone, Capone probably controlled, 5 wards back, in the early '30s, where those are his guys. He put this guy in the Democratic committee, and they probably named the other guy as the Republican committee in too. It's like, okay, well, you don't get to be Democratic committee, we'll just make you the Republican committee for the same ward.
Yeah.
So that goes back to Capone. By about 1960, I think there's 5 wards where the outfit, it's recognized, in the party. That's their ward. The outfit names the community. They name the own. But then there's another 5 wards in the city. Some of them are quite clean cut, where the party has a presence there, but the outfit has no influence. The party, through the normal whatever's voting and things. That's how aldermen get elected. That's how somebody from the party organization becomes the community. So not the outfit doesn't have the power to name them.
Do you care to talk about your opinion or viewpoint on how the machine runs today, and if it's
the Democratic Party
saturated or affected by organized crime in even the least bit today?
That's an interesting question, Joe. There still is machine politics. It's a different sort of machine. It still functions like a machine, gets the vote out and stuff, but it's a different sort of machine. Mayor Daley created a new one. I think he didn't like the old one when they wouldn't support him for mayor the first time.
Yes.
When he lost in that 3-way election,
Byrne and what? Yes.
Something like that. Yeah, when he was state's attorney.
Yes.
So he decided that's not going to happen to me again.
Right.
And when he does get elected, he creates his own political apparatus, but it's still a machine, etc. I don't know if the outfit really has too much influence now. Times, with anywhere close to what they used to have in the Democratic Party organization. I mean, times have changed. What people would put up with in 1960 ain't what they'll put up with today.
Right.
We see that in the labor movement, shall we say.
Yes.
The stuff the union members would just look the other way on in 1960 or 1930, now the union members will get quite, whatever you want to say, up and say, that guy never swung a hammer, that guy never drove a truck in his life. What's he doing here getting $150,000 a year as the business agent or the steward or the president of the local?
Sure.
So the world has changed.
What era, or let's say what decade of the Chicago outfit are you most interested in?
I'm most interested in Prohibition. The book that I'm working on now, which I'm very close to finishing writing it, it's a history of organized crime in Chicago, primarily during the Prohibition era. Again, I start before Prohibition because a lot of what goes on during Prohibition is what was there before: the labor racketeering, the gambling, the narcotics, the things like that. And then just the bootleg.
What kind of narcotics were traded or sold back in the 20s?
Yeah, pretty similar to what you think.
Heroin and cocaine.
Yeah, the morphine derivatives were around for years. You know, initially it was other stuff, and then a German chemist distilled, you know, morphine into this stronger thing, heroin. And then cocaine was certainly around going back to the 1900s. What was popular would change, kind of, but they were both around. Again, cocaine from the coca plant, talking largely Latin America.
What kind of people use those drugs then?
You know, it depends. Yeah, the audience changes. You know, way back when, I think a lot of you know, very, very normal people who wanted to relax would use one of the other poppy derivatives, opium smoking.
Right.
The Chinese brought that over.
Sure.
There were opium dens in Chinatown, and if, you know, I think, you know, a lot of different people to unwind would go down there, and you know, they'd have a guy light the pipe.
Reminds me of that movie Once Upon a Time in America. Did you
Robert
see
De Niro
it?
used the opium den and unwind.
He'd disappear for days on
He's
end.
got a guy. He's got a Chinese guy
Right.
that takes care of him.
Right.
So, you know, at one time it was in the form of opium, and heroin became, you know, the more common drug that was used from the poppy.
And how much of the drug market did the Chicago outfit deal in the Prohibition days?
I've got evidence that I've got a variety of evidence during Prohibition that not just Capone, but, you know, his gang, meaning when Torrio had, and even when Colosimo had, was involved in the drug trade. The other bootlegging gangs, I don't think there's any evidence that they were, but that gang certainly was. There's references back in the 1930s newspaper articles about, hey, look, when Johnny Torrio and Al Capone took over in 1920, you know, they didn't know much about bootlegging. They were busy with their gambling and the opium dens and the vice and stuff, saying pretty clearly that, you know, this is part and parcel of what these guys did. And it sort of fits in that Levee district, the heart of prostitution in the city in Chicago. Many of the prostitutes and their pimps, heavy cocaine users.
Interesting.
And Chinatown was right next to that.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of the opium dens were. But so it wouldn't be surprising if Colosimo at all had his hand in it. And there's other discussion about different newspaper articles talking about, okay, you know, the drugs are coming in largely to Chicago from Canada. They're tending to come in mixed with the liquor shipments. The bootleggers are bringing them in. Well, that's, and from what I see, Capone's game.
Yeah.
As well as several of Capone guys, mainline Capone guys, got busted for narcotics sales. West Side Frankie Pope,
Can you name a couple of others?
Dennis Ducooney is listed in a federal report because he's got the near South Side prostitution as being, you know, big time drug dealer. He was Capone's guy. I'm blanking on who the third prominent one was. You know, the more recognizable Capone gangsters. And then there's lower level guys who are getting busted. Clearly Capone gangsters at that point in time. Lower level guys are getting busted for, you know, part of the narcotics trade.
Do you think the outfit remained in that business for years after the Prohibition ended?
Yeah.
How many years, or till this day?
I think, from what I can see until this day, as far as I'm concerned, it's a complete myth, even though Bill Romer and some guys have said, oh, that the outfit never touched narcotics. Ricardo paid his guys more money to stay away. There's evidence throughout the years that they were heavily involved. I mean, I think they totally controlled it until maybe about the 1970s, and then the street gangs started to get into the retail, street corner sale of, you know, the two major things they handle: any sort of cocaine derivative and any sort of opium derivative. You know, whether it's rock, cocaine or crack or you know, whatever. I mean, that's what they do, is retail that stuff. So now the outfit is on the wholesale into that stuff.
I see. Now, I can't think of any drug-related federal or even state indictments that came down where any well-known or notable outfit guys.
I could give you a list of
Okay,
stuff in
do
the
that,
50s,
please.
because there's discussion of, yeah, you know, these guys just got rung up, and this guy's been seen regularly going over to Tony Ricardo's house at 915 North.
Who's this person, man?
I'm probably going to blank on the name right now, but Gene Kahn and Ricardo had close associations with guys. Again, there's a whole set of outfit guys that get busted in about 55 or so, and one of them was regularly seen at Ricardo's house. I think it's William the St. Scally is killed gangland style in River Forest, of all places, in about 59. And the newspapers talk about, that he has connections to Giancana, stuff like that. And Scally was involved with narcotics transactions.
Now, but we can't assume that Cardo or Giancana were involved with the drug racket just based on the fact that someone that was arrested or perhaps killed gangland style because of alleged dealing with drugs happened to be someone in their network or social network.
Well, I mean, here it's outfit guys. It's not just somebody they knew from the neighborhood. It's outfit guys who are the ones being indicted or convicted for it. And then they're not just an outfit guy. That they report up to a cardo, etc. Or they are seen with a cardo. When you're in the outfit, you work 100% for them. You don't get to freelance. So you don't get to go and I got my outfit stuff, and then in my spare time I do this or that. No, you do outfit stuff. So I think Crackers Mendino once got indicted. I'm not sure if he got convicted. He got indicted for stuff related to narcotics, and again, there's a bunch of evidence through the years where they talk about Chicago being the center of the heroin trade in the United States. The outfit working with the Herrera Mexican crime family in the 70s in Chicago, bringing the Mexican brown in and stuff like that. So there is a bunch of stuff, if you really look carefully at the newspapers over the years.
Well, I'll tell you something I've heard. Let me know what you think of it. I've heard some people shared viewpoints and various perspectives on things that suggest the way the outfit may have had an actual role in the sale of drugs is through their juice loan operations, that they would lend money, probably lend money to people that they probably knew were buying and selling drugs with that money they were borrowing, and they felt somewhat insulated from it or unconnected to it because they looked at it as, I'm lending this person money, whatever he does with it's his business, as long as I get back my interest. Right. Is that one way the outfit may have been involved and still felt like they weren't involved?
Yeah, and I do want to come back to that about, so where was their involvement, even if they did control it in all of Chicago?
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised. This was, of the big three sort of groups of clients for the juice loans, the criminal class itself is one of the big ones, and that's a pretty good one. Look, I'm a little short on product this week. I need some cash because I got to bring some stuff in from wherever it's coming from, China or Turkey. So you go borrow a juice loan, you bring it in, you push it through real fast, you pay the guy off, everything's fine. You are not the risky juice lender that they're going to have to lean on, because unless the police come and grab your heroin or your cocaine, $10,000 is going to turn to $40,000, $50,000 in a couple of weeks, and you pay off.
Sure.
And I'm convinced that at one point in time the outfit sort of controlled all of narcotics in Chicago area, but you wouldn't see the normal outfit guys, guys you'd recognize on the street corner peddling. No, they used other faces. They had associates. They had usually black guys and Mexican guys. Those would be the guys you'd see down around the near south side or on the west side. Those would be the guys who, if anybody's doing a street corner sale, it wouldn't be outfit members. So I'm convinced Arcaro had a prohibition on, I don't want to see any of my guys directly dealing. That's not smart. And we don't want people get tying us to that. But it's their drugs, and it's being pushed through their associates then. But black guys, Mexican guys.
Do we have any evidence that would suggest that Arcaro or any of his contemporaries or cohorts, colleagues, etc., utilized their power in the Cook County court system back when almost every judge was beholden to and loyal to the outfit? Yes. Do we know of any cases, any big drug cases that went down in the 40s, 50s, 60s or so, and they walked? Or were those always federal matters?
Not that I can think of. I don't know if those were always federal matters back in the day.
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, there's always an issue of turf and grabbing, and if it's successful in the legal world, you're grabbing the credit for it. Yeah, the FBI would love to make a $10 million heroin bust, or DEA would love to do it, as opposed to the locals doing it. But the Chicago police have rung up enough guys over the years on narcotics violations that they're pretty active. And to your main question, I don't think I've ever seen anything like, hey, here's these 10 guys get picked up. The 5 outfit guys end up getting not guilty from the jury, and the other 5 guys get sent away for 30 years. I've not seen anything to hint at that. I mean, it doesn't look like they ever, got away with anything, as opposed to murders being suddenly quashed by the judge for 10,000 as part of Grey Lord or something like that.
Isn't that just wonderful?
Yeah.
Ministers
finest justice money can buy.
Ministers of justice and killers go free for 10 grand.
People have asked me about that. Like, the figure staggered, and I said, why slow? Well, competition rears its ugly head. There wasn't just one corrupt judge in Cook County who could say, give me X, or the case won't be fixed. No, there's lots of corrupt judges. Competition keeps prices down, Joe.
What's the Cook County court system like today? Do we have any judges out there, do you think, that are
I
still perhaps in position from when the first ward was around?
That's a good question. Like, are there still judges on the local bench who were put in there by the First Ward organization? I don't know that for a fact, because I've not ever tried to do a nose count. Like, this judge, this was his sponsor, or his Chinaman or whatever, yes, shall we say. And so he was the First Ward's guy, and he's still there.
I should clarify that. I meant the old First Ward, not the present First Ward.
Right. Literally the sort of Rody DiArco 60s type of First Ward. Yeah. And again, as you say, the boundaries now. And once again, they made a ward disappear. And they did that with the ward around Taylor Street. There were too many killings there. Yeah. So they moved the 20th ward from the west side when they redistricted all the way to the south side. Meaning that this is now the 20th ward, not that.
Yeah, right, yeah.
No, I'm sorry, it was the 19th. They made the 19th. They made the 19th take a 10-mile walk.
Yeah.
This is what they do, right?
Right, indeed.
But yeah, I don't know what the Cook County court system is like nowadays. I mean, things change. What the public will tolerate is not what it used to.
Do you attribute any of that lack of tolerating what it used to because of the difference in technology today? There's so much transparency.
For either to get caught. So yeah, well, that would be the other side of the fence. Mm-hmm. So these guys are less likely to do stuff that they would have gladly done if it was the same guy during the 60s or 70s, because it's more likely to get caught. I mean, in terms of what the public just would tolerate, what you, I, etc., would be willing to, sort of not squawk about or squawk about. I think in economics is what's called an income effect. Certain things change as people get more wealth or income. They tend to, some things you see, they tend to be more concerned about their fellow man and society, and do more charitable acts. Donate more money. Well, in that, I think historically the upper crust individuals, the upper middle class, individuals of Chicago, were always, very kind of intolerant to public corruption. Well, the whole society, the average wealth level has gotten higher over the years. So probably many more individuals are more concerned about, we don't want this corruption around here, but that Chicago shouldn't be that way.
I think we could agree that gambling was probably their primary revenue.
Yeah, for years.
Source of revenue.
Yeah, for years.
Yes. How much of it's going on today?
Probably not that much, because virtually everything is legally available. I mean, as far as I can, and I don't...
You don't think that Marco D'Amico or some of his cronies, Tony Doty, are taking bets? Maybe not personally, but, behind...
Yeah, I mean, the outfit probably is running some things. Mm-hmm. There is still some edge for them, even though, a lot of stuff is legal, but so much has been legalized. Let's just put yourself in a position. If you were a gambler, and if you have an internet connection, you can bet on virtually anything you want to. Sure. You can play whatever game you want to an offshore casino, you know, in terms of virtual slots, blackjack, blah, blah, blah. You can go online and play poker. You can play hold'em tournaments and stuff. You can bet at any sporting event. So the guys, they're simply outfit customers that the outfit have to have an edge somewhere. Like maybe they are running some live hold'em games somewhere, like they ran card games for years.
Sure.
Or maybe somebody wants the cachet of playing with certain guys as opposed to playing with just anonymous people on the internet. And then the other big thing is, if you want to play for credit, you play on the internet, you need to put the money up front.
Sure.
Put it in, and then that's what you're betting.
Right.
If you want credit, well, you got to go to the outfit.
Yeah, sure.
So that is certainly part of their edge.
I see, sure. People that don't have the credit.
Which is, you know, we're back to the juice lenders again. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Now, Johnny DeFranzo, you know the name.
Sure.
Did you ever meet the man?
No, I've never come across him. Part of that was, you know, by design. I mean, I knew where he drank. He drank for years in the Loon Cafe.
Sure.
I knew exactly what nights he was in there drinking.
Drink at Horwat's too.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Drink at Armand's.
Wouldn't be surprised.
The old Armand's.
Yeah, exactly.
And a whole bunch of other places.
I think for years he was in the Loon Tuesday nights as a regular, and then Friday nights.
I think that increased as the years went on. Because there were times I saw him there every day.
Okay. And I mean, it's right around the corner from where he lived.
Not too far, right?
And then near the end, before the Loon closed, then he was in there for lunch every day with his coterie of people. Marco, after Marco got out, with one of his brothers, with a little set of people.
Sure. I remember, I think Chuck Out, he did a piece on that. Yes.
And then, starting the next day, John Franzo never went in the Loon again.
Is that right?
Yeah. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
That was the last time he was seen in the Loon.
I see.
You know, when Chuck outed him in the parking lot.
Right,
So to speak.
yes. And I saw the clip and I knew what he was going to say, and he didn't get to say it because Chuck just interrupted him, but he was going to say, what are you making a movie with those cameras?
Mm-hmm.
Because I did know the man personally, not as well as some of the people around him, but I knew his sense of humor, and that's where he was going with that. And then it clicked that, now it isn't a movie, it's...
Channel 7 investigative report.
We're here to find out what you want
Time to get the
about.
Dodge Ram truck and get out of Dodge, meaning this parking lot.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah. But today, John is, how old is he today? About 86, probably?
Probably.
85?
God, is he born in 29 or so?
I think a little earlier than
I
that.
have to go look
I
at it.
think 27 or 8.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, he's not a young man.
Probably, who do you think the wealthiest outfit boss in history in Chicago?
Ricardo or Rica. They had all those years at the top. They were just, I think they were...
They had a long run, didn't they?
They had a long run, and they were there at its peak. There's an estimate, and you don't see these very often, but you know, if you look through the papers, I'm looking for them back in the newspapers. But there's an estimate that someone did, and these are law enforcement guys. Their estimate was the outfit's gross revenue per year in 1961 was $6 billion. 1961.
That's some serious money.
Yeah, now of course they had some serious expenses too. They're the same guys that did the estimate, Ogilvy when he was sheriff, and his roughly around that time. And Ogilvy's guys, Ogilvy estimated that their net was 15%. 85% of that got eaten up with the usual expenses. Hey look, 15% of $6 billion is still $900 million in 1961 or $2. That's a lot of freaking money.
It sure is. Today, it's a lot of freaking money.
Yeah. And the boss gets a big cut of that, or the top guys.
The lion's share.
Yeah. So I mean, as I like to say, I think Ricardo and Rica's descendants are going to be just pulling $100 bills out of safe deposit boxes for 10,000 years.
If not $1,000 bills.
And all of them were printed in the 1920s. Yeah. They haven't even gone through that safe deposit box yet to get to the money from the 1930s and 1940s that got put away.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I'm being facetious here. I mean, they were savers, I think.
Yes, I had a friend who told me that when they made money, they would ramp up a bundle of cash that they would get for on any given day for whatever reason, and wrap it whatever they would wrap it in and put it away. And once they put it away, it's like they don't even have it anymore. Yeah. sort of like the Catholic Church. You know, the Catholic Church always needs money.
Yeah, but no one ever knows what they're holding in assets, but it's reputed to be massive.
Yeah, sure.
The American Catholic Church especially,
Yes,
reputed to be massive.
Yes, yes. I see a lot of similarities in the way the church is structured and the way the outfit was structured. In fact, Willie Messino, you remember who he is.
Yeah, I've not met the man, but
he was a personal friend of mine, and he used to tell me that that the church and the outfit were structured quite similar.
Well, I referred, and this is not a critical thing, but I referred to the church as the Catholic Church as the world's greatest marketing organization. They really knew how to get it done. All right, look, you know, we're trying to get new members. It's the Roman Empire. Well, what do the Romans want here? Let's tell it to them. Oh, you guys were responsible for the crucifixion. That was somebody else. And here, you know, this is how we roll. How does that sound? Yeah, you guys were doing cool.
Yes.
I mean, it was run very effectively as a business.
So today you're doing a bunch of things, and among these things is this tour.
That you were on yesterday.
It was a wonderful tour.
Thank you for that.
The name of the tour group is?
Well, the formal name for the tour is There Goes the Neighborhood. Neighborhood being two words in my usage.
Gotcha.
I got the easiest way to get information out. I put up a Facebook page for it, and there the name of the Facebook page is Oak Park River Forest Gangster Tour.
Ah, that's simple enough.
Yeah, so I post updates on there, a description of the tour and stuff. And there's a little bit of feedback from people who've ridden along and stuff.
And whose house is, well, I know after yesterday, but would you like to tell the audience about just maybe some highlights of whose houses we went by? You go by 3 times a year, so you do this?
Yeah, this year I've got 3 dates. Last year I had 5, but the weather sort of killed things last year because spring didn't start till July last year around Chicago. You remember that one?
I sure do.
Yeah, so it killed my spring and didn't help my fall too much. But it's basically an exterior tour. We don't go inside the houses because they're private residences, although I've been inside 9 of the 15 myself. So, you know, the bus goes around, we stop at each place. I talk about each owner, his career. We get to the house, I talk about time in the house, the family, interesting features of the house, the tunnels, the secret hiding places that are there that I've seen or have been discovered, things like that. Then I talk about the rest of the guy's career. Then we move to the next location.
Sure.
But so in the process, it ends up being, you know, almost the full history of the outfit, because we're talking about guys going back to Prohibition when it was just a Capone gang, all the way up to Accardo, who died in '92.
Yes.
So in that process, you sort of cover pretty much the close to the full history of organized crime in Chicago through the lives of all these very, very top guys who lived in Oak Park and River Forest.
Yes. Now, the first house on the tour was Sam Jean John's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And someone on the bus talked about her daughter, asked questions.
The famous daughter.
The famous daughter. 3 daughters.
Yeah.
Now, 3 names, too, this one daughter has.
Right.
Antoinette, Annette, and Tony.
Right.
And on any given day, we don't know which one she uses. But for the most part, I know her husband, her last husband, Bob McDonald, called her Annette. And I know people that grew up with her who told me they called her Annette growing up. But somewhere, Tony and all other...
At least one of those is probably an actress name, because she did try and do some acting for a while, so she may have, you know, gone from whatever the baptismal certificate says to the other variation.
Sure.
I should check the baptismal. I should check the Cook County birth record to see. No, she might be born.
She may have changed it, and they would change it on the birth certificate too.
Okay.
Yeah, they do that.
She also may have been born too recently. You can't. You can only look up births starting in about 1940. They have a ban on otherwise.
You're not suggesting she was born before 1940. I didn't think she looked like she
No,
was
I'm suggesting she's born after, and therefore they have a lock on it.
Yeah. So, Giancana's house is the first one.
Right.
And then we looped around and we went over to Tite Spitaglia's house.
Yeah, that was the third one, yeah.
The third one. The second one was...
Jack White.
Oh, right, yes, in the apartment building.
Yeah.
He was murdered in that, there. He was murdered there. And the Hump was a suspect along with whom?
Klondike O'Donnell.
Ah, sure.
Are the chief suspects. in that one because.
And when I say the hump, what's the full name?
Oh, Murray Humphrey is known as either Hump sometimes, or I think the papers call him Camel. Apparently, other Alpha guys would refer to him as Curly. And Hump was used a lot too, I think.
I was thoroughly impressed with the fact that you were aware of the fourth house that Cardo owned in River Forest. Yeah. I only knew that because Willie Messino had worked for him, and when Willie was an older man, he and I would get together. I grew up with my family on Polk Street, and so the families go back a lot of years. Sure. So I used to kill a little time with him here and there, and sometimes we'd take strolls through River Forest on a Saturday afternoon if we didn't have much to do. And he showed me all of Joe's houses, including the one that you know of that almost no one knows. That was his first home, and that was not on Lemoyne. It was on
1402 Monroe.
Monroe, right? Yes.
It is the street address.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, that was a little bit lucky. I knew people who lived in the house, the previous owners, and there had always been some sort of legend about a car. Okay, when did he live there? I said, oh, in the 1960s. I'm like, no way. The FBI knew where he was every waking moment of his life in the 1960s. It would have shown up somewhere. If he was here, he was not here in the 1960s. But then I started to pick up information from old timers who grew up on that block. They put him in there in '38. And then I started to, much more recently than I found very formal documentation, his World War II selective service papers that got that address. A page from a Chicago Crime Commission report, this sort of a short bio of a car, has details like, his one daughter born this year, the hospital records list, he and Clarice at 1402. Next daughter 2 years later, hospital records list, he and Clarice at 1402 Monroe, and then 1940 census has him at 1402 Monroe, so definitive.
Sure.
But Willie would have known, of course, so Willie let you know.
Willie knew, and but it had been so long at the time, it even took him a minute or two. We had to go around the block a couple of times to remember exactly the house. And I know that, think about it, like you just mentioned, every waking moment, Cardo was under surveillance. They knew where he was all the time. Yeah. How on earth did this man last as long as he did without getting indicted?
He was very...
I'm sorry, he was indicted before, but without being convicted and put to prison, for many years.
Exactly. Very, very good wording in that.
Yes.
He was very, very good in his chosen profession. For perspective, people sometimes ask me, these like summary questions, and I say, so who are my top 5 leaders of American organized crime? Cosa Nostra. Okay, Lucky Luciano, Ricardo, Rica, Torrio, and then maybe I'll give you a Carlo Gambino or somebody.
I see, sure.
I'm not a big Joe Bonanno fan so much.
I see. Those are very impressive names, by the way, if you're interested in the things these people were about. And I don't mean that as if,
as a historian.
As a historian, thinking that. Now, when Joe died, Joe B., who was Mr. Ricardo, when he passed away, I remember seeing on the news, I think it was Chuck Out, if my memory serves me correct, he did some kind of a expose, or he covered the death of Ricardo, and he was standing in a room similar to a warehouse with pallets of papers stacked 6-8 feet high, as far as you could see.
I think it was wall. Was he standing with the FBI headquarters file on Ricardo?
Yes.
Yeah, I think people had been allowed to FOIA that right around that time.
I see.
And he might have been down at the crime commission, and they had it.
I see.
Because I think I remember that too.
You did say that.
Yeah.
And I think what he was saying is, look at all the documentation on the surveillance of this man for the last 50 years. All of this paper, all of this material on this man, and he didn't spend one night in jail, which I know is false, by the way. He did spend one night in jail. But maybe
I mean, I've got him there a couple nights in Chicago, and just in a holding cell.
Yes.
He got picked up at night, and the lawyer didn't get there to get him bailed out until the morning. So,
right.
But that doesn't count.
No,
He never spent a night in jail for a conviction.
Never. Right.
So, I mean, that's what counts.
Yeah, that's quite impressive from a historical standpoint,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And you know, given the rate at which they knocked out everybody else from his era, meaning, you know, the 50s on in Chicago, Rico went down twice. Some of the other guys have been knocked down a couple times, you know, Lombardo, DeFranco. Yeah, I forget everything about John DeFranco, whether there's 2 major convictions or what, but a lot of guys got knocked down for all kinds of stuff.
Now, John DeFranco had an old conviction of some kind, I think.
There's the one, okay.
Yeah, but the most recent one, that was reversed by the appellate court, so it doesn't
There's the
stand.
92 thing about the ring conning, you know?
That was reversed. That's not a conviction.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I think years earlier he was
When he's with the
convicted for
3-minute
something.
gang of burglars and
Perhaps
stuff?
back
I
then.
wouldn't be surprised. I'd have to check. That one I don't remember.
Did you ever hear that John DeFranco and William Herons were friends?
No, did not hear that. Where would we run across Hirons?
You don't remember William Herons?
The lipstick.
The lipstick killer.
Lipstick murder, right?
The lipstick murderer. They were both born in the same year.
Okay.
And according to some information I received, they were both frequenting the same pool hall.
Oh. Okay.
And
It was just purely accidental because they were from different worlds.
but from what I understand, they were doing some. It said that they were doing some kind of low-level business together.
Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if Hirons had some petty criminality, and maybe we don't even know about it. Hirons was doing burglaries because look, you break into a house to kill these women, and what is it? It's a burglary with malice, right?
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if Hirons was one of these kids who was, you know,
Started off as a
shoplifting
Sure,
and then doing other criminal stuff for whatever reason.
Yes.
Just like we probably knew guys who were in high school shoplifting all the time. Even if their parents had tons of money, they were always shoplifting. That's just what they did.
What else are you working on? You're doing the bus tour. You're in the process of finishing a book. What is this one on?
Again, the book is about history of organized crime, largely through Prohibition, although I started earlier because the rackets from before 1920 are effective rackets in the 20s and Prohibition as well. And then that's, of course, what organized crime becomes again after Prohibition. I still do a lot of work for cable TV to one extent or another. They still call.
Which station is this?
What? A lot of the stuff ends up on places like A&E,
I see
the
what you mean.
Channel.
Okay,
But there's a lot of other channels now. There's the American Heroes Channel, which used to be the military channel. A lot of other channels are they're recasting themselves. The military channel changed its name because I think they wanted to get away from just military stuff. So they've got series now called like American Badasses.
Ah, I've heard of it.
And they want to do gangster bank robber stuff in there.
Then there's this new station, Reels. They're doing a lot of documentary work
Okay.
on outfit stuff.
Okay.
That reminds me of Frank Calabrese Jr.
Okay.
Is he a hero of yours?
Well, since he was an outfit guy himself before.
John Cass from the Chicago Tribune regards Frank Calabrese Jr. as a hero.
Because he turned and testified against his dad.
I think that's going to an extreme. but-
Yeah, I don't find any outfit guys to be heroes. And my parallel would be, I don't especially like Napoleon either. I don't care that he was the head of a state. He got millions of guys killed in Europe just because he thought he was going to be Alexander the Great.
Yes.
He doesn't impress me either.
Yes.
So, just to put things into perspective.
But there's a great Napoleon stew at a restaurant that I go to once in a while named after him. That I like about him. But it's also named after, it's codenamed the Napoleon stew and the
Waterloo stew?
No, the Lord Black stew, because a friend of mine, Conrad Black, who is now a former owner of the Chicago Sun-Times, he would go into this restaurant when he was on trial in Chicago in 2007 and order the stew, and the man who owned the restaurant got such a kick out of it that he changed it to the Napoleon stew and the Lord Black stew. It's kind of an interesting thing. You brought up Napoleon, that's why I had the memory.
That's how we got there.
But anyway, going back, getting back to Frank Calabrese Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
not an idol of yours. He's not
No,
your hero.
I mean, And
He's not.
I don't know
not a
him.
hero
I don't
to
know
me
the
either.
man.
Neither do I.
Yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't say any of the outfit guys are heroic or deserve admiration per se.
Would you regard him as a former outfit guy?
Oh, I believe so. He's working with his dad, Frank Senior, etc. And I think they were heavily juice lending and stuff.
You put him up there on the list with the other outfit guys whose houses we've driven by or drove by and talked about today. As far as do we regard a man like him?
As outfit guys go, I think he's interesting, historically interesting and stuff. As you know, on the tour, I just keep the loop short. I keep it in Oak Park and River Forest. I don't get over into Elmwood Park or cut over to Cicero or Burr or anything like that. So Frank Calabrese did have a house in Elmwood Park for years. So
the 75th and Grand Avenue.
Yeah, I mean, if I were
bought it from him.
Okay, I mean, if I were to do a Elmwood Park tour, which I'm not going to.
Why won't you do an Elmwood Park tour? You've got Jack Cerone's house in there, Phil Macy,
and
Willie Messino.
At the West End, Angelini, I think, was on that side of the street.
John DeFranzo's original house before he moved into that compound on Grand Avenue in River Grove. And then you have a whole bunch of other ones.
Yeah, you do. I mean, one sort of more obvious answer is it's not quite the same list as Ricardo, Riga, Jack McGurn, Teets Battaglia, Gene Conrad, etc.
But Jack Cerone, it was...
Yeah, Jack was a prominent guy.
Prominent.
The other thing is, I know no one's going to bother to tour in Oak Park or Forest. I'm not sure whether it'd be official harassment if I went into Cicero with a bus and they heard a guy does a gangster, or if I went into Elmwood Park, etc. So,
do you suspect that you would get a parking ticket or something like that, or someone throw a rock at the window?
I doubt if the locals would throw a rock. It probably wouldn't bother them. But a tour like that, I couldn't afford to take a chance that maybe the police would be stopping the bus every time we go through there and writing it up for violations that may or may not exist, and not only giving you a quick ticket, but holding you there for an hour.
And then you have 30, 40, 50 people on.
All of them have to go to the bathroom. We're sitting there doing nothing while I'm getting written up, and and the police are taking their sweet time running me for some reason, even though I'm running my name through the computer.
Sure.
I think they have those even in Elmwood Park now, as opposed to the bus driver.
John, it's been a real pleasure.
Pleasure's mine, Joe.
Let's do this again soon.
That'd be great, yeah.
There's so much more to talk about.
Oh, sure.
And we just can't do it in one
Yeah,
sitting.
I mean, the outfit has a rich history, going all the way back to the Capone gang during Prohibition. There's a lot of interesting stuff that goes on.
One last time for the camera, Oak Park River Forest Tours, is it?
The Facebook page, which is the easiest way to find, the current information about the tour, the Facebook page is named Oak Park River Forest Gangster Tour. That's the label I put on it, rather than, there goes the neighborhood, which is the unofficial name for the tour. So you can search that, and you'll see the dates and stuff, and it's an easy way for people to contact me if they have particular questions about things like, do we have open bar or not on the bus? Always important.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it right here. Go to your computers, look up the tour, book a ride. It's a great tour. I was on it yesterday, thoroughly enjoyed myself. And pick up one of his books. It's a great read, The Outfit.